Hey, Autumn Athletes, Larry Sorensen here, and today I'm going to connect with Judd NeSmith and find out what makes him an Autumn athlete that's not done yet. Before we get started, as always, if you enjoy our content, please like, subscribe, and ding that bell for notifications. All right, Judd, thanks so much for joining us today. Why don't you kick us off with a brief introduction of yourself?
Thanks, Larry. It's good to be here. My name is Judd NeSmith. I'm the founder of Serious Fitness here in Boulder, Colorado. I'm 56 years old, 5'10", 180. I've been that way since college. I have a wife named Autumn and a son named Xavier. And I've been in Boulder, Colorado for about 22 years by way of Southern California.
All right, well, great to meet you. Thanks again for doing this today. Before we start talking about, really what you're doing now, I'd like to just get a little history on you. So why don't you fill us in a little bit on your athletic history?
I've been a so-called gym rat since the age of 16. My parents put a weight set in my garage. During that time, I was an avid baseball and football player. I played that for quite some time, but I fell in love with weights at 16. So I had a pretty bad body image complex. And back in those days, I guess some of us could be familiar with this. Our coaches in football and baseball used the weight room and exercise in general as punishment in a way. I just didn't like it, running sprints for, if you lost a game by 14 points in football, you're running 14 wind sprints. It just didn't seem fun. And back then, the weight room and a lot of high schools and colleges were treated as like a bodybuilding type of routine. And I just didn't really like it until about the age of 16. And I just wanted to, honestly, I had to be blunt. I wanted to look better for the girls. So back then, my buddies and I, we'd come to my parents' garage and we'd work out 7 days a week. We didn't know any better. I mean, we were doing, it's funny, Larry. It was 7 days a week. We laugh at this. We would bench press and do bicep curls. That's all we knew. But then college came around. I went to a big college in Texas, University of North Texas, and I discovered some really cool gyms in a college town. I worked out with football players, and I discovered full body workouts. And honestly, after about a year and a half, I was worried about getting too big. So then I fell in love with running and became an avid distance runner during my college phase. Fell in love with endurance training and weightlifting, which can be kind of counterproductive with each other to an extent. So from my 20s up until my mid to late 40s, I was that person who was strength training 3 or 4 days a week, running 30 to 40 miles a week, cycling 100 miles a week. And it's what brought me out to Boulder, Colorado from Southern California, because I was a pretty competitive trail runner in Southern California and a pretty avid cyclist too. And the Boulder lifestyle really drew me in because this is probably the endurance training capital of the United States. And I came here 2003 just to enjoy the Rocky Mountains and run in the Rocky Mountains and mountain bike in the Rocky Mountains and enjoy the roads out here in Colorado for cycling. So that's still a big part of my lifestyle, but because I live close to the mountains, the wintertime kicks in here soon and I start to cross country ski on the weekends.
All right, so obviously you've had a long history of athletics and training. I know you mentioned to me earlier that you really didn't have any big setbacks, and that's pretty impressive because most everyone I talked to has had some pretty big setbacks. So I'll just ask you again if you've had any that you recall since we last chatted, and or if not, what would you attribute your ability to stay injury free all these years?
That's a really good question because I work with athletes and people who are very physically active who are over 50. And don't get me wrong, Larry, every week or other week, my body's check engine light comes on. And I realize, uh-oh, I overdid it again. But based on being a coach and a strength and conditioning coach, I kind of know how to treat those injuries. Don't get me wrong, on a monthly basis, I'm usually working around something, but nothing too significant to sideline me where I can't exercise. My biggest setback was in 2006, I had knee arthroscopy for a torn meniscus. And, it's just, we can't get around that because of an active lifestyle. And even with the torn meniscus, within 48 hours, I was in the gym on crutches, going to station, sitting down, doing upper body exercises. And I kid you not, within about 14 days, I was riding my bike. And within about 12 weeks, I was running again, and I ran a marathon 5 months later. But that's been my biggest setback. But don't get me wrong. I mean, I definitely have my aches and pains as someone who's 56 years old and who still likes to train pretty aggressively. I have to look in the mirror and ask myself sometimes, why am I doing this? Am I doing this to be physically active and strong when I hit my 70s? Or am I trying to beat myself up to build a younger body? It's a fine line. But I attribute it to I attribute my ability to keep training this way with minimal injuries to honestly working out in the gym. I mean, I preach this all day long to endurance athletes in this town and worldwide. If all we're going to do is ride a bike or run, we are at great risk as we get older of creating some serious muscle imbalances. And also, most importantly, we're at great risk of losing a lot of lean muscle tissue. We got to preserve that lean muscle tissue to stabilize our joints. And I know way too many people in this town and all over the country who still mainly just ride a bike or run for fitness. And it's great. I mean, I love those activities, but they are going to get frail when they get older because we are losing so much lean muscle tissue after the age of 50. And we got to preserve that. It's going to help us maintain our joint integrity. So honestly, Larry, it's kind of a bitter pill to swallow because I love to run and ride, but I still do that. But as I get older, I'm putting more of an emphasis on strength training, lifting weights. I want to keep more muscle on my body.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about your fitness routine in a second, but you mentioned something about marathons, and we know you've been in the gym. I'd like to hear a little bit about maybe some of your personal best achievements, whether that's out on running, biking, lifting, anything. Just kind of fill us in on some of your successes over the years.
I guess my successes are the ability to have completed 30 plus marathons. And not really the fastest marathoner, because if you saw me out there running, you're like, that guy lifts weights, you know. And even though I'm only 180-ish right now, I still, I have that physique of a guy who works out in the gym, and I take pride in that. But I also love to distance run. My best marathon time was the Las Vegas International Marathon back in 1998. And it was 3 hours and 35 minutes. And it crushed me. It was not easy. And I want to point out this, Larry. I've only run 3 days a week.
Mhm.
That's the most I'll ever do, because I want to cross train. But my personal best with the marathon was 3:35. And that training routine was basically, one tempo run on Tuesday, for example, another kind of zone 2 cardio run on Thursday. And on Saturday or Sunday, I would do a long run, and I would taper down like 3 weeks before my marathon. My fastest 10K was 42 minutes. That was in my late 30s. Done a lot of half marathons. Best half marathon time, I think, was, I want to say, 1 hour and 30 minutes. And I've done countless 10Ks. And again, honestly, Larry, even though I say that I am a competitive runner, I did it because I like the achievement. Even though I was focused on time, PRs really didn't matter to me. I enjoy that runner's high, and I coach a lot of runners, but I knew that if I was going to be so dedicated to strength training and building lean muscle, packing on more lean muscle, it was going to slow me down running. And I really don't mind that. I didn't want to be that frail runner who just runs 6 or 7 days a week and just focused on time.
Kind of a two-part question. One, are you training for anything specific right now? Any kind of meets or events or anything like that? And then kind of along with that, whether you are or aren't, just fill us in on your typical training regimen. Give us a typical week, in the life of Judd and his training?
Well, first off, for the longest time, I would train 7 days a week. And as a lot of endurance athletes know, we're at great risk of overtraining syndrome. And there's no doubt in my mind, I hit that several times when I was younger and I just didn't know any better. Chronic sinus infections, getting sick a lot. And, plus as a coach, it's a very demanding job. But with that said, I'm training for life right now. As an older male, I just want to be able to do the things I enjoy doing. I want to hop on my mountain bike or my road bike and ride whenever I want to without any concern about not having the stamina or the strength. Right now, currently, I'm training for cross country skiing here in the Rocky Mountains, which is a very demanding sport. And but I don't have any races scheduled. I'm kind of raced out right now. Training for a race kind of interferes with my training schedule, especially in the gym. And I want to take a step back there. I am even more focused right now on maintaining and building more lean muscle, just after seeing so many studies about I'm at great risk of losing that. So I'm training for life. Maybe in 2025, I'll pick a few races out. But right now, I take pride in the fact that my current training program is letting me do the things I enjoy. Long rides, long cross-country ski outings, long hikes, running whenever I want to. I train a lot of athletes who do race. But with that said, my current training routine is I'm doing a full body workout with weights and resistance, whether that's dumbbells, kettlebells, barbells, medicine balls, we know TRX systems in the background. I'm doing full body workouts Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, which are, as you probably are aware, just designed to help us get stronger, build more lean muscle, and also burn more body fat. So there's 3 days a week. The other 3 days are strictly cardio driven because I take one day off a week just to recover. And that one day off, it's not really a day off. It's a lot of foam rolling, a lot of stretching. It could be my weekly massage appointment. Just like recovery gets harder as we get older. And I cut back from 7 days a week to 6 days a week when I turned 50. It's really helped me a lot.
Mhm.
But the other 3 cardio days right now, so I lift weights on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. My Tuesday workout is a zone 2 cardiovascular workout for an hour. I'll either ride the bike, I'll run. If the weather's pretty foul here in Colorado, I'll use my gym equipment and do an hour cardio workout. But my goal is to stay in that zone 2 window where, like I tell my clients, it's slow to medium, steady state cardiovascular activity. It's not too hard. It's not too easy. You get phenomenal benefits from that. So I'm doing zone 2 cardio on Tuesday. My Thursday workout is a high intensity interval training program, which is focusing on right now VO2 max intervals. And like this morning, I did it. My VO2 max workout was 4-minute sprints, so to speak, on my fan bike at a pace I could barely sustain for 4 minutes. I call it my 10K pace. That last mile of a 10K is my VO2 max pace. So I hop on my fan bike. I do a 4-minute VO2 max interval, which is what I call comfortably uncomfortable. You're like, oh my God, this is gonna be a long 4 minutes. You can do it. And I work on watts on my fan bike. It's a great measurement for VO2 max. So I try to maintain 340 watts on my fan bike for 4 minutes. Then after that, believe it or not, I hop off my fan bike and immediately go to my treadmill, which is about, you can't see it, but it's right next door. It's about 5 yards away. Hop on my treadmill. I put the incline on 3%. I put the speed on 2.5, and I walk backwards for 4 minutes. I'll let my heart rate go down, and backwards treadmill running and walking gives us phenomenal benefits, especially at a faster speed. But the reason why I like walking backwards on a treadmill for my 4-minute recovery window is it stretches the hamstrings and the calves in a very functional movement pattern. It's helped me a lot. And it also adds some agility. to my training because as we get older, we tend to get klutzier. So my VO2 max workout this morning was 4 rounds, 4-minute VO2 max intervals on my fan bike, followed by 4 minutes of recovery on the treadmill. I'd go back and forth 4 times with that. And then I finished that workout with 3 short, what we call HIIT intervals, high intensity interval training intervals. I'd hop on the fan bike, did 30-second sprints, went as hard as I could on the fan bike. And that gasses you, by the way. Ask anyone who's familiar with the fan bike, a 30-second sprint on a fan bike. I give all of my clients a goal, male or female, to get to 0.2 on the distance screen. That takes some work. After that fan bike interval, I hopped off again, went to my treadmill, 2.5 miles an hour, and I walked backwards for 2 minutes. I did that 3 times. And then I did 3 more 15-second sprints on the fan bike, trying to get to 0.1 on the distance screen, walk over to the treadmill, and did 90 seconds of walking backwards for recovery at 2.5 miles an hour. So that was my Thursday workout. And then my third cardiovascular workout is going to be on Saturday or Sunday, based on my family schedule. And it's long, LSD, long, slow distance, whether it's on a bike, running, hiking, or here soon, it's going to be cross-country skiing.
Well, obviously you're getting a lot of physical exercise in. That's only part of the equation. So fill us in on your approach to diet and nutrition. And then you did mention a little bit about rest, but anything else you'd like to elaborate on in regards to rest and recovery?
It gets harder as we get older. And the biggest issue for a lot of us, people I work with, is sleep. Man, sleep is so tough as we get older. Honestly, I mean, I'm going to be blunt with you, Larry, too. My goal is to drink 90 ounces of water a day. I weigh 180. That's hard, really hard. The biggest issue I have as a male who's 56 years old is, I get up at 4 a.m. 5 days a week for business, for work, for coaching. I'm in bed by 8:30 or 9 most nights. I have to get up and pee like twice a night. I can time it by a clock. 12 o'clock, 12 midnight, I'm up. I'm super quiet. Don't want to wake my wife up, but I usually do. I keep the lights off. I walk to the master bedroom, bathroom. I sit down to pee with the lights off, and I still wake her up. And then again, around 2:30 or 3, I got to pee again. It's just, and I've talked to so many of my male clients over 50, and it's common, but hydration is so important for us. So I try to get 7 to 7.5 hours of sleep a night, and I do pretty good generally. And that's a big, even more of an emphasis on my training, because we're seeing a lot of studies right now with longevity experts about sleep should be seen as recovery. It should be it should be seen as your exercise program. Yeah, you work out with weights, you run, you ride, you ski, you do triathlons. Do you sleep well? It should be it should be seen as exercise. So it's huge, huge for me. As far as my diet goes, and I think my wife Autumn for this, she's a nutrition coach. First off, I want to point out, I'm someone who loves meat. I was born and raised in Texas. I was raised on meat. I quit eating meat about 8 years ago. And my last meal request is going to be a bacon double cheeseburger with a large plate of fries and probably 2 India Pale Ales. But I don't eat meat anymore. I'm a so-called pescatarian who also follows a plant-based diet. So my nutrition has helped me a lot. And the reason why I quit eating meat wasn't because of cruelty to animals, which I don't like. It was purely for a recovery. I read so many books on a plant-based diet and how it can greatly decrease inflammation in our bodies. And as we get older as athletes, we gotta be focused on minimizing inflammation in our bodies, especially if we're pushing it hard still. And I like to work out hard, man. I mean, I won't lie to you. I still like working out like when I was 21 years old, and it gets me in trouble sometimes. But I have noticed a huge difference in how quickly I recover between hard workout sessions, because I am more focused on trying to minimize inflammatory foods in my diet. And don't get me wrong, everyone is different. I know people out there who are older athletes who do quite well on meat-based diets, and I'm not that kind of guy who's going to wave his flag and be a zealot about it. But my own personal choice was to try this largely plant-based diet. I eat a lot of fish, and it's helped me with recovery a lot.
Obviously, you've mentioned a little bit about your gym. You're in your gym there. Tell us a little bit about what you do in regards to training people. You mentioned something about worldwide. Tell us about how you manage that, where we can find you out on the interweb. Just kind of fill us in on that whole thing that you're involved in with training people.
Yeah, sure, Larry. I have a gym here in Boulder, Colorado. It's a private gym. It's not membership based. I only train people in person privately. And that was a big part of my business for about 25 years. And I cut back on that schedule right before the pandemic hit. So my typical day, I train a few select in-person clients at my gym. And then the rest of the day, I focus on coaching my clients who I have all over the world. I have an online personal training program, and it uses my coaching software, and it's done phenomenally well. Um, I focus on the 50 plus demographic. I work with people who are serious about their fitness, and it's done quite well actually. So most, like after this call, I got 3 or 4 coaching calls with people. I have a client in San Diego, a client in Boise, client in Japan, client in Orlando, Florida. You know, I check in with them throughout the week. We do virtual coaching calls like this. They follow my customized exercise programs using my Serious Fitness app. And those programs include, like I just said, customized exercises, also includes nutrition coaching. And that's been a big hit for us so far. It's going quite well. We have a website called seriouslyfit50plus.com, which explains all of our programs, how you can work with us. We have a fast growing private Facebook group called Seriously Fit 50 Plus also. And it's a business I launched in 2020, right before the pandemic hit. I didn't do it because of the pandemic. It's just as an entrepreneur, I'm always looking for new revenue streams for this business, and got to a point where there was such demand for people to work with me in person, and I had no more space or time, that I worked with some consultants in marketing. They told me, hey, you should launch an online personal training coaching program. And we launched this in January of 2020, 2 months prior before the pandemic hit. And I didn't do it because of that. I just did it because it was ready to go. And fortuitously, it has worked out quite well.
What would be your best advice to those folks out here watching videos like this, and Automathlete's not done yet, that you know, they keep kind of saying, I want to get started, but they just kind of never get started. And so, you know, what would be your number one tip to folks to get started? And then secondly, kind of with the people that you do engage with, what do you see as the biggest pitfall for those who get started that derail them?
You're losing a lot of lean muscle tissue every year as you get older. And you're at great risk of reaching your 60s, 70s, and 80s and being a very frail adult. Frail. You're going to lose mobility. And because you have not been consistent with a weekly strength training program, and strength training means with like lifting weights, you're at great risk of losing strength also. And do you want to be that person in your 60s and 70s and up who has trouble going to the bathroom? You need help sitting down and getting up. Do you want to live your remaining years with functional longevity, or do you want to be I have to be blunt, you want to be that old person who's hunched over, who has to use a walker? And I've got clients in their 80s who picked up strength training in their 40s and 50s and 60s, and they're living life better. They're going on hikes, they're playing pickleball, they're riding bikes, they're taking long vacations in Europe without any help. And it's because they have followed a consistent weekly exercise routine. And another thing, as we get older, especially 50 plus, we're at great risk of what's called age-related weight gain. It happens. As we get older, we tend to pack on more pounds because our metabolism slows down. And one of the best ways to increase your metabolism is by packing on more lean muscle. And that's my biggest motivating comment to someone who asks me that or tells me they're having trouble with exercising on a weekly basis. And I'm outspoken about this. We can all find that hour a day to exercise if functional longevity is important to us. The biggest pitfall, the biggest reason is injuries. People maybe who haven't exercised in a long time, or they have been, or they're having some setbacks and they want to resume and they have pitfalls, it's usually because they're not training their weak links. I see this all the time. I mean, I visit commercial gyms all over the country all year long. And I don't want to be that critic in commercial gyms. I usually just stay to myself, and I kind of scratch my head. I'm like, oh my God. What baffles me is how there's a lot of information available to us. Let's say you're 56 years old and you want to resume exercising again. You just don't go to a gym and follow a bodybuilder routine. It's not going to do you any good. You may put on some lean muscle, but at some point soon, you're going to have that check engine light come on because you're not identifying your weak links. And it's this: shoulders, knees, and hips. As we get older, a lot of us don't address those muscle groups enough in the gym because we don't know how. We just go into the gym and when we work our vanity muscles, we want to have nicer arms. So we do more bicep curls, tricep extensions. Men, I don't care how old they are, even they're 80. They want to do more bench pressing. They want big pecs. I get that, man. So do I, you know. But a lot of people out there aren't aware that there's a type of exercise called corrective exercise where it should start their workout program as part of their warm-up, where it addresses their weak links. Maybe it's addressing the weak hip abductors. Maybe it's addressing the weak rotator cuff muscles. Maybe it's addressing the weak deep pelvic floor core muscles. And a lot of them don't know how to strengthen those muscle groups. And so they just ignore them. They go to the gym and they follow some kind of cookie cutter workout program, which 9 times out of 10, they're following a workout program for a 21-year-old. It's way too much volume, way too much frequency, and way too many big lifts. And they get hurt, they get discouraged. They're like, wow, I guess this is not for me. And that's not correct. I know a lot of fit people, 50, 60, 70, and 80, who have really good looking physiques and a lot of strength because they're following workout programs that were designed for people who are older. And also, I want to point out mobility work. A lot of us just walk into the gym, change clothes, or we just walk into the gym and we start working out aggressively without warming up. At best, it could be they maybe walk 5 minutes on a treadmill to get their heart rate up, but that's not going to cut it for us older athletes. We've got to work on mobility. It should be part of everybody's warm-up before their main workout. Mobility work is a series of stretches that are dynamic. That's going to really help improve a lot of muscle imbalances, whether it's stiff hips, a stiff thoracic spine, underfiring glutes.
Judd, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and letting us know what makes you an Autumn athlete that's not done yet.
Thanks, Larry.
I want to just give you, you kind of gave us a lot of stuff there, but I just one more time give you a chance to just give us any final thoughts.
You're never too old to exercise. And don't get that thought in your head that you have to slow down as you get older. You may have to have more recovery days. You may have to have a day of easier exercise, but I have clients who will tell you right now that just because you're 56, 66, or 76 doesn't mean you have to sit in a chair and do chair aerobics, or that you have to go to a gym and use mainly machines while you're sitting down to exercise. That's not the case. Don't drink that Kool-Aid. And most importantly, train your weak links. Identify the muscles that you can't see in the mirror. Make them stronger so you can train the muscles that you can see in the mirror. And that's my best tip.
Well, there you go, folks. Judd NeSmith, definitely an autumn athlete that's not done yet. Remember, keep moving, set your own goals, and train hard to achieve them. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next time.